Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're concluding Sima Shi's Coup, Let's Talk Lore series with episode 4 titled Emperor Cao Mao. Before we get started, here's the answer to our trivia question from the end of our last episode. Now last time we ended as Li Feng and Zhang Ji teamed up in late 253 to plot against Sima Shi in a coup where they hoped to assassinate Sima Shi and overthrow the entire Sima clan. To carry out this plan, Li Feng, who is the one with the actual powers as the chief imperial secretariat, eyed the New Year's imperial visitations in February of 254 as the opportunity to assassinate Sima Shi and replace him with Xiahou Xuan as the new Grand General in support of Emperor Cao Feng. In regards to the New Year's imperial visitations, every Chinese New Year, the emperor will make ceremonial visits to key officials' estates within the capital. As the emperor would be leaving the palace for this, the city would be placed under lockdown by the martial guards to protect the emperor's safety. And according to Li Feng's plan, he would attempt to control a small group of the martial guards through 3 officials that worked within the imperial palace, and have this group of guard attack and assassinate Sima Shi on the day of the visitation. Now, the 3 imperial palace officials that Li Feng would pick to control and use for his plot would be Su Shuo, Yue Dun, and Liu Xian, as Li Feng had evidence of their corruption and threatened to expose them to Sima Shi, who was ruthless against corrupt imperial palace attendants. But unfortunately, before the visitation day, rumors of this plot were discovered by Sima Shi, who immediately summoned Li Feng for questioning. Initially, Li Feng tried to deny this baseless allegation, but naturally, Sima Shi was not going to just believe Li Feng's word, as Sima Shi continued to press Li Feng. Knowing that the plot had been exposed, Li Feng knew that only death awaited him, as he decided, in what would become his final moments, to drop his act and just straight up curse out at Sima Shi about how both Sima Shi and Sima Yi are evil at heart, and how he lamented his own inability to deliver proper justice and kill Sima Shi. Outraged by Li Feng's outbursts and plot to assassinate him, Sima Shi pulled out his sword, and instead of giving Li Feng a clean death with a swing of his blade, Sima Shi slammed the ring pommel at the end of his sword repeatedly into Li Feng's face until Li Feng finally dropped dead and slumped down to the ground. Now, Li Feng's body would be handed over to the Minister of the Guards in Zhongyu for a full criminal investigation, as all co-conspirators from Zhang Ji and Xiahou Xuan, as well as the 3 minor imperial palace officials in Su Shuo, Yue Dun, and Liu Xian, were all imprisoned. Now, Zhongyu, who was placed in charge of this investigation, was one of the 9 ministers of the court, and he was the son of the esteemed scholar and calligrapher and court official Zhong Yao, and the older brother of Zhong Hui. Through Zhongyu's investigation, the details of the plot and assassination attempt came to light, and after consulting with the court, Sima Shi sentenced clan execution to the 3rd degree to all those who were involved. Now, a few special people were spared from this 3rd degree execution, as first off, Li Feng's daughter-in-law was Princess Qi, the older sister of Emperor Cao Feng, and she and her husband Li Tao had 3 sons who all technically fell under the 3rd degree mark, but as their imperial blood, they were all spared from death, but the entire family would be exiled along with other extended family members that fell out of the 3rd degree to live forever in the frontier northwestern commandery of Lelang in the Korean peninsula as punishment. Another worth noting exile relative would be Li Feng's daughter Li Wan, who was Jia Chong's wife, as she would be separated from her husband before eventually pardoned and returned back to Jia Chong's side decades later, when Jia Chong had already taken a new wife in Guo Huai's niece, whose name is also Guo Huai, and at that point, Jia Chong did not take her back in. But let's go back to the story, as the real major repercussion from this failed coup against Sima Shi would not be the death of Li Feng and Zhang Ji along with all their associates and family members, but rather its impact on Emperor Cao Feng. While there is no record that would directly implicate Cao Feng's involvement in Li Feng's plot, there were many signs that pointed towards Cao Feng at least knowing about the plot. So naturally, right after the mass executions, Sima Shi also forced Cao Feng to divorce his empress, who was Zhang Ji's daughter, as she would also be killed soon after. Now, Cao Feng would actually be delighted by this development, as ever since the year 250, he had wanted to name his favorite concubine, Lady Wang, as his empress. But Empress Dowager Guo opposed this arrangement, as the two of them fought over this issue for 2 long years before Cao Feng relented and compromised by naming Lady Zhang as his empress. But now, with Lady Zhang deposed, Cao Feng finally got his wish to name concubine Wang as his new and third empress. However, this entire ordeal also highlights how Empress Dowager Guo did not get along with Cao Feng, as after all, Cao Feng was not Empress Dowager Guo's biological son, as none of Cao Rui's biological sons survived childhood, and Cao Feng was just an adopted distant imperial relative. So there was never much love between Cao Feng and his symbolic mother, Empress Dowager Guo. Given this, and Cao Feng's increasingly rebellious behavior, Sima Shi decided to use Empress Dowager Guo as a means to get rid of Cao Feng for good, as the two of them would plot together in a month after the failed coup for a replacement emperor, as both of them saw Cao Feng as difficult to control and also unfit to rule. Now, it's easy to understand the difficult to control aspect, as after all, Cao Feng was just involved in a failed assassination attempt on Sima Shi, so let's instead discuss the unfit to rule aspect. According to the final public denouncement of Cao Feng, Empress Dowager Guo pointed out that Cao Feng was too enamored with his many concubines to focus on matters of state. Cao Feng also had a hobby of using a slingshot to hit people for entertainment, often in their faces. And when one court official in Linghu Jing tried to reprimand the emperor about his behaviors, especially at a time when the empress dowager was ill, Cao Feng became so enraged that he ended up ordering his guards to take a hot iron rod and brand Linghu Jing's body multiple times as a punishment. So, with the rationale for Cao Feng's removal established, it just became a matter of finding the right imperial relative to replace him. Sima Shi's initial choice was Cao Cao's son, Cao Ju, who was the younger brother of the child prodigy Cao Chong and the current prince of Pengcheng, to become the next emperor. Now, this was an interesting choice to be suggested by Sima Shi, as Cao Ju would not be a child puppet emperor, as he was nearing his 60s by this time. But Empress Dowager Guo vehemently opposed this choice, as it would put her in an awkward position, as Cao Ju was her husband Cao Rui's uncle. So if Cao Ju becomes emperor, she would no longer be the Empress Dowager, and it would also mean the end of Cao Rui's line. So Empress Dowager Guo favored picking a younger, distant relative to adopt as her son in order to keep her own position of power, as she ended up pushing for Cao Mao, who was the son of Cao Rui's brother, Cao Lin, making him a nephew to Cao Rui. In Empress Dowager Guo's mind, Cao Mao was the perfect choice, as he was not Cao Lin's eldest son, and currently just a duke whose birth mother was a lowly concubine. Furthermore, Cao Lin, his biological father, had just died a few years ago, and Cao Mao was only 14. So by all accounts, Empress Dowager Guo thought Cao Mao would be easy to control when adopted as her own. And thus, in September of 254, just 7 months after the failed coup against Sima Shi, Empress Dowager Guo and Sima Shi publicly denounced Emperor Cao Feng, and with their supporters at court pushing for the abdication of the emperor, Cao Feng was helpless to stop the abdication, as he would be forced to move to live under surveillance in a palace in the Sima clan's home commandery of Henei. Although to be fair, Cao Fang continued to live comfortably as the Prince of Qi until he would end up being lowered to a duke title after the usurpation of Wei by Sima Yan. Cao Fang would eventually die of natural causes in 274 at the age of 43 with no male heirs. And now with Cao Fang officially bowing out of the historical stage, in comes the new Emperor Cao Mao, who was truly not a bad choice for emperor, as he was well known for being studious amongst the younger generation of the Tao imperial clan. But the matter of abdication and the switching of emperors is surely going to upset some Wei loyalists. And one such Wei loyalist in particular would be Guan Qiujian, who, as the Grand General who stabilizes the East, had control of the Wei Eastern forces and the Yang province, as very soon the Second Rebellion of Huainan would get underway by his command. And with that, we're going to end our episode and series here, as we'll continue next week with Act 3 of The Fall of Wei Let's Talk Lore series, titled The Second Rebellion of Huainan, to cover the rebellion that would claim Sima Shi's life. So hopefully you all have enjoyed this episode and series enough to consider subscribing to the channel for more content on Three Kingdoms history, or simply support the channel by leaving a comment below, or just by hitting the like button. And as always, I'll see you all next time. Bye!